Hi friends, welcome back to Farm Girl Diaries. Today is my big onion day. I've been planning this onion day for a couple of months and we're gonna get it started today. I don't know if we're gonna get it finished today, but we're gonna get it started today. So I have a sink full of onions that I bought from the store. I bought 5 3-pound packs, so I think that means I have 15 pounds, yes, 15 pounds of onions. And we're gonna do a whole bunch of different things with these onions. I think I'm gonna leave a handful, and I mean a handful, I mean maybe 5 onions out. We'll see how much actually ends up going in my roaster. But we're gonna be doing canning some caramelized onions, hopefully canning some onion maple jam, also canning some French onion soup, and hopefully freezing a couple bags of onions in the freezer for a quick and easy prep item. I love having frozen onions in the freezer because then I don't have to chop an onion, it just saves time. Then I also love, last year was the first year I did caramelized onions. You just caramelize onions and then you can them just like that. And so that was just such an easy meal prep item, and it made your meals, it cut down the time. You know, caramelized an onion takes, if you do it low and slow, it takes anywhere from half an hour to 45 minutes. And this just cut that time off right off the bat. So I really love caramelized onions just on its own. Then this is my 3rd year canning onion maple jam, or my onion jam. And this is delicious. This is delicious. It is a very savory, slightly sweet jam. And I say jam because it has whole onions in it. So I personally don't think you're gonna put it on toast and eat it for breakfast. But I love this onion jam on so many different things. It is a staple on cheese boards. I love to make cheese boards. I make them for just so every time I have company, I have some sort of cheese board out, and this onion jam is a staple on those cheese boards with some white cheddar cheese, some brie, a cracker, an apple. So good. But then I use this onion jam and I add just so many different things, and it just gives you that unexpected flavor. So I love to add it to scrambled eggs with some cheese and scrambled eggs, and it just completely changes the flavor of your scrambled eggs to this sweet, savory egg. I put it on top of meats. I put it in casseroles. Anytime we need anytime a recipe calls for an onion, and maybe I don't have an onion, or I don't have onions caramelized and don't feel like caramelizing, I will 100% swap out my onion jam for caramelized onions, and it is just phenomenal. So there are even times that I will skip the caramelized onions and go right for the onion jam. On a Philly cheesesteak, again, it's savory, very savory, and it does definitely have a little bit of sweetness. And I'm somebody who I like sweet. I don't like sweet desserts, but I like sweet entrees. So it's definitely something for me that I prefer it sweeter, but you could always obviously cut down the sweetness if you wanted to and make it really, really tailor it to your taste. But onion jam is one of my favorite things that I can on my shelf. It is something that I will forever can, and I'm really excited about it. So we're gonna be doing everything in the roaster today, and I will say, when I go to make the onion jam, I'm gonna transfer it to a pot. I made my onion jam in the roaster last year. I just don't think I cooked it long enough, so it was a little bit runnier than it was the previous year. So I'm gonna go back to cooking that on the stove, but everything else is gonna get made here in this pot. The 3rd item that we're gonna make and can is French onion soup. So I am a new lover of French onion soup. I've never had it before. I think I had it for the first time maybe 2 years ago, and I'm hooked. Especially on those winter snowy days, just a big cup of beef broth. So good. So I've never done this recipe before, but I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna do a couple quarts of it, put it on my shelf, and then if I really like it, we can do more over the winter time. So I'm just gonna get all of these onions in this pot. All of our recipes, minus the onions that we're gonna freeze, all start with caramelized onions. So I have a big roaster pot, and rather than putting them on the stove to just simmer down and have to keep watching and make sure they don't burn and all that stuff, I'm gonna put them in the roaster and I'm just gonna let them go. It is, I have my oven going, so I don't know what time it is. It's early afternoon, so I don't know if all of this is gonna get done today. This might be a 2-day project, and if it is, that's completely fine. But I wanna go ahead and I wanna get all these onions in this pan, ready to caramelize for the next step. I did want to mention, now is the perfect time to save our onion skins. Thanksgiving is in just a few weeks, and we're going to be making some broth. and I want to make sure I have some onion skins for that broth. So I'm going to be taking all of my onions and putting them directly into a freezer bag, and then when the bag is full, I can just store it in the freezer. Half an hour later, and I have this 18-quart roaster just about filled. She's about 3/4 of the way filled. I didn't cut any onions for the freezer yet. My nose and my eyes were like, we need a break. So I do have, I just put the extra onions in my crock here, and sometime later today or maybe tomorrow, I will come and chop these guys and put some of them in the freezer. I'll probably keep 4 out or something like that. For fresh eating. So I want to go ahead and I want to get this caramelizing. So I just got to plug her in, and then I'm going to put her on about 250. We're going to start there and see where we go. I don't really know what to put it at. And then I'm going to put lots of olive oil. And a good amount of salt. And now I'm just going to let them sit, and I will come back when they're all caramelized down, and then we will divide this big pot into our 3 things. So caramelized onions, our French onion soup, and our maple onion jam. So I'll see you back here in a couple of hours. So the onions have been going for about 8 to 9 hours at this point, and they were on about 200 because they were starting to burn a little bit at the edges, so I turned it down. And they're not fully caramelized. They still have some ways to go. I did bump the heat up to 275 just because they were taking so long. But this, I think, is a perfect amount of caramelization for our French onion soup. So we're gonna get started on our French onion soup. So it is the next day, different outfit. But I've had these guys going, and I don't want to keep waiting anymore because once they're done, when they're fully caramelized, then I'll have to do the onion jam and jar up just the caramelized onions and make the soup. So I think this is actually a really good spot to make the soup, and the soup is gonna be pressure canned, so that'll also help cook the onions in the pot. But I think we don't want them like falling apart. We want them to have a little bit of crisp to them. So I think we're good. So in this pot, I have 2 gallons of beef broth, and I just used, where did I put it? I just used some beef bouillon and made my own broth. I don't buy a cow, so I don't have beef bones to make beef broth, and I really don't use beef broth ever. So I think this is the first time I've ever actually used beef broth. So I just, use the bouillon, and that's just fine. You don't always have to make everything homemade. So to this pot, I'm going to add half a cup of butter. I believe that's just a stick. Yep. So add a stick of butter. And I'm excited for this soup. I think a canned French onion soup that we could just get off the shelves on a snowy day sounds delicious. We need, let's see, 1.5 tablespoons of brown sugar. So I'm just gonna do that. 2 teaspoons, well, let's do 1/2 teaspoon of salt. We need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And, oh no, sorry. We need 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And 1 teaspoon of pepper. then we need 2 teaspoons each of the Worcestershire sauce and soy sauce. Oops, sorry, that was 1 teaspoon of soy. Oh well, we're good. And then 2 teaspoons of balsamic vinegar. If I can get this guy open. And this is a maple balsamic vinegar, so I think that's just gonna add so much additional flavor. Oh, look how pretty you are. And then the recipe calls for 2 cups of white wine, and sadly I am out of white wine. So I like to keep these little bottles in the fridge for cooking. So I have 1 of these, so it's 1 cup of white wine. And we're just gonna be a little shy on the wine, and I think that'll be okay. So let me get my area cleaned up, and then we'll add our onions. When you have such a small kitchen, cleaning up as you go is so helpful, so you don't end up with a super messy kitchen and you still have room to work. Now the recipe calls for 24 cups of onions, and I'm just honestly not gonna measure. I'm just gonna dump some onions, because I do want to make sure I keep some onions for my caramelized onions we're gonna can, and for my soup. So I hope I have enough, or my caramelized onions and for my jam. So I hope I have enough. You'll see later that this soup is more broth than onion. There are definitely a lot of onions in there, but when it comes to soups like this, I love the broth. That's really what I live for. So I did go light on the onions just because I had so many other things I wanted to do with the onions, but I'm not upset with this at all. I am just so excited to open a jar of this soup, eat the soup, and then still have some broth left over. I did drink a cup of this broth that was left over after the cannon, and it tastes so good. So I am so excited for this item. I'm gonna let it cook, and I want to get everything heated up, melt it down, get all the flavors put in. I also need to add 2 bay leaves into here. So I don't know if I have bay leaves. I need to see if I have bay leaves. But I want to let this cook and simmer down. And again, I really want the broth more so than I want necessarily onions. So I think I'm okay with having it be a little light on the onions. So let's get this on the stove and get it simmering away. Look how good this looks. Oops. Look how good this looks. So I did taste test this before, and I've added quite a lot more Worcestershire sauce and soy sauce. I think it needed that depthness, and I did use a beef bouillon powder that I bought from the store, so it could have been my beef broth. Wasn't as beefy as I wanted it to be, but I really felt like it was missing a lot of depth and just a lot of, it was like very one note. So I added a lot more. When I say a lot, I just took the bottle and I was just dumping. And I did that 3 times until I got to the level that I thought it tasted. It just had that really beautiful deep note. So let's give it another taste. It's been simmering for an hour, about an hour since I last tasted it. So my onions are still very crisp. If you can hear that, they're still crunchy. So I was okay letting this simmer, and after that the onions will cook down some more, because I don't think in traditional French onion soup your onions are crunchy. But these are going to pressure can for an hour and 15 minutes, so they will continue to cook both in the pressure canner, and then when I get ready to eat this, I will just open a jar, dump it into a pot, and they can still cook then too. So they still have more cooking to do. So I think it's okay that I left them a little underdone. So, this is good. So, what I'm really excited about is I'm really excited about that as a meal. You know, when I'm kind of plan it and get some cheese, take some of my bread and make my own croutons and melt cheese over top of it and make it a traditional French onion soup. But I'm also very excited to have this when I'm sick. When you're sick, one of the things you want the most is broth. And I love me some broth. And I just think the amount of flavor that this has when I'm sick, or especially when you're recovering and your stomach's still not quite what it needs to be, so you really can't eat foods, but you're hungry. I'm really, really excited for this to kind of work as that purpose. It has so much flavor. Even if you don't eat the onions and you just drink the broth, there is so much flavor here that I think it's gonna be a really good item to have on the shelves just for when you're sick. Even if you don't want to eat it like a traditional French onion soup, I think it's great to have for a sickness. But I'm gonna go ahead and get this all jarred up. I have 9 quarts out, so I'm hoping I have 9 quarts worth of soup. So let's see. Because I didn't add as many onions as was necessary for this, I'm gonna start by adding onions first to each quart jar to make sure I have at least a decent amount of onions in each quart jar. We're gonna start with a quarter quart of onions. Again, I'm going for the French onion soup. I 100% am. I just don't think I did enough onions for all the onion things I wanted to do this weekend. And I want to make sure I get the onion jam and the caramelized onions ideally done. So I don't know if this is working quite the way I wanted it to be. So I just thought this would be a good way to make sure each jar gets some onions. And then we can top it off with the broth. So I filled all of the jars with just like about a quarter of a jar. I didn't do the 9th one, I just did 8. A quarter way full with the onions. And I think it's gonna be okay, because once I top these with their broth, you're gonna eat this most likely with cheese and some croutons. So I don't think that is an abnormal amount of onions. I mean, maybe it is on the light side, but I think it'll be just fine, especially once you know you're gonna put croutons and cheese on top of this. And now we're gonna start ladling her up. I got 8 pints of French onion soup, and then I have 1 pint that is just broth. It has a few pieces of onion in it, but it's basically just broth. And I'm gonna label that as just broth, and then that way that'll be the first one I go to this winter when I'm down in the dumps. So I just want to make sure I get my rims super clean, because there is some butter and oil in this recipe. I want to make sure that I have everything nice and clean. And then I did fill these up to 1 inch of headspace. So what's fun is my pressure canner can hold 8 quarts and I have 9. So I'm gonna run it and then I'm gonna run it again for 1 quart. So that is not ideal, but I'd rather do that and have this quart of beef broth on the shelf than not. Forgot to mention, I never found that second bay leaf. So that's gonna be a fun surprise. So Caitlin, future Caitlin, there's a bay leaf in one of these quarts. Don't eat it. And live, my canner can only hold 7 quarts, so these 2 quarts will wait for the next batch. Pints will process for 60 minutes, and quarts will process for 1 hour and 15 minutes. So that's going to take some time. So let's get her started. There is a little bit of broth left in this pot, less than a cup. And I'm just going to pour that in a glass and I'm going to drink that with my dinner. I'm going to have a shirt made that says, "Don't be like me. Do as I say, not as I do." So the first round of the French onion soup is in the canner. And I have 2 more jars that are going to go tonight. So they take an hour and 15 minutes. So it is currently 4:30. The 10 minutes for the countdown on the pressure canner just started. But my onions are finally caramelized. And fun, the caramelized onions need to be, guessed it, pressure canned. And they get pressure canned for 75 minutes. And I don't have enough time in the day. I don't have enough time in the day to get, where are all of these reflections coming from? I have never had them before. Now I can get rid of them. But I don't have enough time to do my 2 rounds of French onion soup or my 75 minutes for my caramelized pints. So we're going to go into day 3. So I will see you guys tomorrow when I get those caramelized onions canned and the maple onion jam made. Hopefully. So I can't do the onions tonight. I don't have enough time, but I am going to go ahead and get the onions that I'm going to can jarred up, and the ones that I'm going to make into onion jam, we're just going to put them into a different container to sit in the fridge. So they're not just going to be on, because I work tomorrow. Tomorrow's Monday, so I wouldn't be able to get to this until basically 24 hours from now. It's just about 5 o'clock now. So I don't want these to cook for 24 more hours. So I'm going to get I have 1/4 pint jars. I would prefer to have 1/2 pint jars. That's what I did them in before. But I just don't have any currently. But I have some of these, so we're just going to use these. And this will be fine. You can do it in the pints. I don't like to do it in the pint jars just because I don't use that many caramelized onions. But I want some, I just want a few. So anywho, when I did, even sometimes in the 1/2 pint jars, they would go bad because I didn't use them fast enough. So I think the 1/4 pint jars will be more like a single serving of caramelized onions. So I have 6. We're going to see how much that gives me. Today is daylight savings. It's Sunday, so we fell back an hour, and it is currently only 5:30 and it is pitch black outside. And I'm sitting here, my first batch of French onion soup is just about done, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I have enough time to do a second batch because it's late. It's bedtime. In reality, it's just 5:30 and it's pitch black outside. Hi friends, we're back. It's been a couple of days since we did our onions. I just had them in the fridge in a smaller container. So today we're gonna get our onion jam started. It is 5 o'clock on a Tuesday, so it's 5 o'clock. So I'm hoping that I can get all of this made and canned tonight. Now keep in mind, it is the Tuesday after daylight savings, and I have fell asleep on the couch every night since daylight savings at 8 o'clock. So that realistically gives me 3 hours to do this. And this takes, oh, it only takes 10 minutes to can. So hopefully this is very, very doable. Fingers crossed. I did last night process my 1/4 pint of my caramelized onions. I processed these for 75 minutes because I couldn't find the times for 1/4 pint, and I'm not entirely confident. I'm pretty sure you just half the time. So it's half half pint. So I would take the 75 minutes of a half pint and half that to what, like 30 minutes, 32 minutes, something like that. But I couldn't find anything about that. So I just said, you know, I'm better safe than sorry. We're just going to do these for the full 75 minutes. So these guys are done and ready to go. And I processed all of my what are you? I don't think this is anything. I think, why are you in here? Oh, it's my maple syrup for this recipe. Okay, when you're done. And I processed all of my French onion soups. And when you shake it up a little bit, you can see like the onions moving around inside. I got all these guys processed. So I have 8 quarts of soup and 1 quart of broth. So I'm really excited. And with my cannon, I like to do one of 3 different things. It's either a cannon and it's a preserving project. So I'm getting something out of the garden. I'm preserving for future meals. Or it's a meal prep item, so it's something that I can do now to prep for meal prep or meals in the future, or it's a homeopathic. And the third one, the homeopathic route, is a new route for me to go down. So I like the idea of it being offering some sort of like medicinal use, or in this case, this is something that I can use when I'm sick. So I think I'm really trying to get more into the homeopathic canon. What things can I make and can along that route? I don't know how far down that route I can go, but I really like the idea of this broth and this soup being kind of flagged for when I get sick or when some of my family gets sick. And I want to kind of explore what else I can do. Like that would be good if you're sick or you are under the weather or anything like that. So I'm really excited. This is a meal prep item and a homeopathic item. So this item is just deliciousness. There's nothing homeopathic about it. It is just delicious. So we're gonna get started on this. So my recipe calls for 24 cups of chopped onions. I don't have 24 cups. I probably have about 16. So I'm going to, and I didn't measure. So I'm just gonna eyeball this, but I will give you the ingredients or the measurements, and just keep in mind this is for 24 cups of chopped onions. So it calls for 1.5 cups of brown sugar. I am going to do almost all of that brown sugar because who doesn't love brown sugar? And brown sugar is one of those things. I love talking to my friends and my coworkers about all of the different reasons that I homestead, or all the different ways that I homestead. And it's so many different things that you don't know about until you know about. So brown sugar is one, for example, that I always have sugar and I always have maple syrup on hand, but there's been so many times I'm out of brown sugar and I'm like, how am I surviving without brown sugar? And you can make it yourself. So this is one thing that I won't buy from the store anymore because I can make it cheaper and better myself. And the consistency of my brown sugar is so much better. I don't know if you can see that really well. It's so much better than what you get from the store. So I'm loving having my brown sugar on hand. So I'm just gonna do 1.5 cups of the brown sugar. Do 3 teaspoons of salt. I am gonna cut that down because I did salt these guys pretty well when I was caramelizing them. So I think I'm gonna start at a teaspoon of salt, and I can always bump it up if I need to bump it up. And I can't find my teaspoon, so we're just gonna do that. Next, I need 3 teaspoons of cinnamon. I'm just gonna do a nice sprinkle. And it does call for 3 teaspoons of cardamom. I don't have cardamom, and I've never used cardamom, and I think it is fine without it. So I'm not gonna buy that just for this meal. Then I'm going to do 1 cup of balsamic vinegar. I'm actually going to go a little shy because I don't have the full cups. So I'm going to start with 3/4 of a cup. And this is actually a maple dark balsamic vinegar. And I think this is, again, just going to add so much more of that beautiful maple goodness. So I'm just going to start with 3/4 of a cup. And then it calls for 1 cup of apple cider. Again, I'm going to do 3/4 of a cup. And then the last ingredient is 6 tablespoons of maple syrup. So because I use this maple syrup balsamic vinegar, I'm just gonna do a little swig of maple syrup and we'll go from there. And if you were buying your maple syrup from the grocery store, stop instantly and find somewhere local. There, I guarantee you, are local stores that will sell local maple syrup. And it is so much better than what you're gonna get in the grocery store. That's just mass produced. So much better. Definitely buy local. So let me bring you down here and show you what it's looking like in here. You can see down there we have some liquid at the bottom. We're going to put this on the stove on a low heat, and that liquid is just going to thicken up, and it's going to create this really nice sauce that's going to make this almost like a jam consistency. So I'm just going to let that simmer for the next hour, hour and a half. I'll come back and I'll stir it occasionally and I'll check on it, but I really want that sauce to thicken and it to be more of a thick mixture than onions and a runny sauce. So stay tuned. I just turned the heat off on this. We're gonna get ready to can this up. This has reduced quite a bit. There is still some juice in there. And if I wanted to test this, I could pull some of this out, and I think I might do it. Let's do that. We'll pull some of this out and we'll put it in the fridge to see how it thickens up. But this has reduced quite a bit. Ouch, that's hot. Okay, this has been in the fridge for just like 5 minutes. I just want to see. It's cool. Yeah. It's savory, but it needs some more sweetness. It's definitely maple. I think it needs a little bit more, so I'm going to add some more brown sugar and some more apple cider vinegar. Okay, so this onion jam is officially done. I've added just some more brown sugar and some more vinegar because I like it to be a little sweet and then a little kind of like tart from the vinegar. But this is so savory. It is going to be so delicious on so many things. I'm so excited. So I'm starting with 5 pint jars and we'll see if that's enough. And then this will get water bath canned for 10 minutes. As I debubble these, I left about an inch of head space. And I had 5 pints exactly. 1 pint is more liquidy than the rest, but that's okay. Get their rims really nice and clean because there is a lot of sugar in here and that will definitely make the rims not stick. Or make the lids not stick. These are all the lids that I have. Ed and Caitlin here. I forgot to sign off when I finish this video. So I hope you guys make some of these recipes, and if you do make some of these recipes, please let me know what you think of them, what you do with them. I'm always looking for new inspiration. But thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you on the next video.